2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
All right, headline makers for you now with broadcaster Claire Muldoon and political editor of HuffPost UK, Kevin Schofield. It's a Scottish takeover.
It is. It is.
About time. About time.
Oh, about time, is it? Yeah, calm yourself, calm yourself. Kevin, let's have a look at the Times, should we? Suella Braverman, this is where I don't understand politics, or don't like politics.
Yeah.
In that Suella Braverman, who is desperate for the Rwanda plan to kick off, is now threatening to scupper the Rwanda plan.
Yeah.
Unless she gets her own way.
Yeah, try and get your head around that one. I mean, basically what you've got to remember, though, is that she doesn't like Rishi Sunak. So I think her dislike of Rishi Sunak probably just outweighs everything as far as Suella Braverman's concerned. So basically this week, Rishi Sunak's emergency Rwanda bill, which he says will finally get flights off later this year, comes back to Parliament. Lots of right-wing MPs, including Suella Braverman, are trying to amend it to make it tougher. But that will just annoy, well, not just the Prime Minister, who thinks it's tough enough, but also those on the sort of more moderate wing of the party. So he's not got his problems to seek. But Suella Braverman is the first one to come out and say that if it's not amended, she will then vote against it, ultimately.
Cutting off her nose to spite her face.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's why ultimately it probably will pass.
Do you think so?
I think it probably will, because I think there won't be enough MPs like Suella Braverman who think... I think most of them will think, well, it's as good as we're going to get. It will look daft to vote it down if ultimately we support the Rwanda plan. Because the thing is, as well, if this doesn't pass, then Sunak is sunk, really. You know, it's virtually a confidence vote in him. And if you can't get this legislation...
So,
it is, yeah. So if you can't get this legislation through, then he might as well just chuck it.
There'll be a...
And then there'll be a general election, and then they're 20 points behind in the polls. Do they really want to bring down the government?
You say there'll be a general election. How can you go into a general election if there isn't a leader of the Conservative Party?
Well,
there would be, but
there would be.
There would be a stand-in, just somebody. Oh. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess in theory,
a stand-in anyway.
Well,
you know. So, what's new? I think the sooner they call this general election, the better, because we need to get rid of the SNP up in Scotland. We need to get, you know, a proper government governing that is being elected by the British electorate, instead of this wishy-washy, rishy-washy rhetoric that's just going on just now. I'm done with it all.
It is definitely wishy-washy. Can we move on to this story in the Mail, Claire?
Yes.
About some original scripts from the TV series Friends.
This is goes back to 1998, the one when Ross marries Rachel. But the funny thing was, this was all filmed in London, and the two scripts were actually disposed of in a bin in London in the studios up at Wembley where it was filmed, because they didn't want the spoiler alert. Obviously, Ross didn't marry his fiancée Emily, but married Rachel.
Well, he said Rachel's name.
He said
at the wedding.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
Right.
When he was getting married to Emily, he said, "I take thee, Rachel," by mistake.
Oh. Which is a bit of a no-no.
Episodes.
Really, it's a bit of a no-no at a wedding to get the bride's name wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was massive at the time.
So not only are these original scripts, but they're of two very famous episodes.
Yes.
So what happened to them?
They were binned by a producer or a young runner.
Destroyed.
No, they weren't. They should have been destroyed.
Someone hoiked them out the bin.
Someone hoiked them out the bin, kept them for years. 219 bids for the auction house up in Hertfordshire, and they were sold for something like £29,000.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's worth your while.
It is, isn't it? Just keeping it and just thinking, oh. And of course, I think this has escalated with the death of Matthew Perry.
Yeah.
So that made it even more, perhaps.
But I mean, is that not stolen property?
Well, I was wondering that. I suppose you'd have to
Well,
argue that if
possession's
it was
9/10 of the
thrown it
law,
out,
it was
isn't it?
thrown out,
It's not,
how
yeah.
you prove it was in a
I've
bin.
got some original scripts from Good Morning with Anne and Nick.
Don't know if
You know,
that'll,
'cause
I don't know if they're worth trying to
She says she ruffles her hair and lies back. Well, those are good old days, Anne.
No, they wouldn't be. But you know, it's, in those days,
You're a tenner, though,
in those
for a-
days, scripts were all paper. They were massive things, massive loads of paper and everything. So I kept a few of them, and they
bet
got
the
all
grammar was
they
correct.
got all our original little marks on and everything like
Have
that.
they?
Yeah.
Nice.
For 10 grand.
I'm afraid you'll have to wait till it's another 20 or 30 years on
Okay,
those.
all right, I'll wait.
My drift.
Yeah, I get your drift. Just shows, hang on to things, though, doesn't it?
It does.
If you've got space.
Yeah.
Can we have a look at... Have we just got to, I want to look at this. I know it's Claire's, but you both chip in, because we've got a bit of video, I think, of the world's first... It's called the Ares rather than the...
You've got to be careful how you say it. Yeah.
It's the first pothole robot, and it's being deployed in Hertfordshire.
Mm-hmm. Ooh,
which
it
is
mends
quite exciting.
potholes.
90% cheaper than manual labour.
Right.
They don't need rest, they don't need sleep, so therefore they can work 24 hours a day if need be.
They need to put it out on the street somewhere. It's nowhere in a garage. It's no good in a garage.
So it looks as big as a car, if not bigger. But then, oh, here we are. We see it rolling out of the garage. And maybe if we take the strap line out, we might see what it does.
Now, this has been funded by a university, and they've got together with Hertfordshire Local Authority. Now, potholes are extremely expensive, not only for drivers in the UK, but also for the government. Figures are released of £2.8 billion for road repairs in the UK alone. And you know it's to the chagrin of many drivers when they hit a pothole. And it's ridiculous to think that, I mean, you would know that, Stephen, you enjoy driving and you enjoy driving good cars. So to hit a pothole is quite dangerous and causes quite a lot of damage.
If you're listening on the radio, we're looking at pictures of this thing, which is the size of a car, and it's just stopped in the road, and all these men in high-vis jackets are just walking around it and talking.
It's all
Doesn't appear to be doing anything.
It'll take a while.
Oh,
Here we go.
So what it does is it fills the pothole, identifies where the cracks before the pothole actually exacerbates and becomes worse. Because of the inclement weather we have here in the UK, the rain comes down, fills these cracks with the cold weather, ice then expands, pushing the asphalt and everything else in the road out, which then creates a pothole. And these robots can actually go and identify the cracks before they become potholes, fill them, and then move on.
Excellent. Well, I think we need to be seeing more of those on the roads. So they're nothing much to look at the minute.
They're horrible.
I'm sure they'll get a revamp.
Well, it's one of the things that really annoys people, isn't it? But they think the politicians should fix it, and politicians are always promising to fix it and never actually do.
I always thought road tax paid for that, but apparently not.
Honestly, roads and...
ULEZ.
Roads and bins.
Yeah, that's the thing, yeah.
You know, that's
all
what
politics
we
is
care about.
local.
Yes, it is what
Yeah,
we
it's
care
people care about that.
Right.
And when to take Christmas decorations down, we'll talk about that a bit later
yes,
in the programme.
we will.
It's gaining momentum.
Yeah, we're all going round to Anne's house after the show
to celebrate
take our
Christmas.
With a bit of
decorations down.
twinkle, and I
we
might
are.
serve a bit of Christmas punch.
Here's the weather.